Man, the New York Jets got their cheeks clapped by the 49ers. Yeah, it was embarrassing, but it's week one. It was the reigning NFC freaking champions, right? Got to give credit to that. There was a lot of bad, there was some good, but honestly, it's not what we wanted as Jets fans. But I think if you're being real with yourself, I don't think many of us really thought we were going to go ahead and come into San Francisco and beat up on the reigning NFC champions. Nevertheless, we got Frankie from Flashbook Book in the Hangar tonight with us, and we're going to talk about Week One and um and if we can fix this and what we're going to go ahead and do to go into Week Two. So yeah, it's the Hangar Hangout, episode 23.
I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you ever lost? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man. I can do it all, I will never fall. It's the Renaissance, you know that I got the mother sauce, man. You know I'm the boss, I know what it costs. Have you ever lost? I'm so versatile, yeah, I'm a Renaissance, man.
Congratulations, brother.
And here we go.
Damn it, man. Week one is a rough one. It's a rough one. I was really kind of hoping to get on the show tonight and talk about a surprising upset victory by the New York Jets. We saw the AFC East collectively go undefeated until we were stepping up to the plate to kind of go ahead and make it a full sweep, and we fell short. I mean, we fell more than short, man. We, again, got our cheeks clapped by the 49ers in embarrassing fashion. It's a lot of bad to talk about, right? But I reiterate the fact that this is still the 49ers. This is the reigning NFC champions. They are the bullies of the NFC. And honestly, they've only been pretty much kept at bay by Patrick Mahomes and company over the last couple of years. But tonight, all good. We got Frankie from Flatbush with us. We're going to go ahead and talk about the Jets' performance. We're going to talk about the bad. We're going to talk about the good. And we're going to talk about how we feel about them moving forward. And, of course, the AFC East, we're going to sprinkle that in as well as to how we look and how we stack up against, the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, who both went undefeated. God, the Patriots beat the Bengals. Again, right now we're at the bottom of the basement. New York Jets. We're getting the same old Jets kind of narrative being kind of pushed out there. I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe you should either. But without further ado, let's bring out Frankie and let's talk about Week One for the New York Jets. Frankie.
Hey, Gunny. How you doing? Gunny, I have some good news for you.
Oh, what's good? What you got?
Did you know that Alan Lazard was the 14th highest scorer in all of fantasy football? In the entire league, he had the highest fantasy football score of anybody. How about that? Alan, the Lizard King Lazard.
Hey, baby, it sounds like, what I'm saying, we've got a viable wide receiver 3, maybe a little competition for wide receiver 2 with Mike Williams.
Hey, let's make him wide receiver 1, Gunny. I mean, the man is a scoring machine. He put up 2 touchdowns against the Super Bowl 49ers. Let's give the man some props.
I mean, the logic is there. The logic is obviously there. You know what I'm saying? No feelings being attached to this. I love where your mind is at, Frankie. Now, before we get into all the good, i.e. the Alan Lazard success, right, and how he played last night, what the heck was that, man? The New York Jets have lived and breathed over having an elite defense over the last couple of years. We're talking about a top 3 unit across the board, number 1 in many aspects last season. And they come out last night and they did that. I'm talking about the defense showed no physicality. They got bullied by the 49ers. How does this happen? Are they rusty? Is that what happened? Are they rusty, Frankie?
Well, I do think we have to understand that we were playing not only the 49ers, but we're playing Coach Straight Brim Banana Hands over there. And who knows Robert Saleh better than Banana Hands, right? I mean, he knows exactly what Saleh is going to do. And he knew that Saleh was going to have our boys like breathing fire, ready to go, running all around, all hyped up, all aggressive, all, fired up. And he used that aggression against us. He said, okay, That's what they're going to do. Great. We'll use misdirection. We'll use quick game. We're going to let them, we'll use the screen game. We're going to do all the things to use their aggression, which Salah will do because he's Salah and he can't help himself. And this is just what he does. And we're going to use all of his strengths against him. And that's exactly what he should have done. And it was brilliant, honestly. So we got out coached because Shanahan said, fine, you want to be some fire breathing, aggressive, crazy, on hair on fire team? Great. I'll use that against you. Here you go. And that's exactly what he did.
So then, so in your mindset, it was more along the lines of we just got it was chess match. They were playing chess, we were playing checkers. Are you concerned that they might have given the blueprint to other
Yeah.
teams in regards to how to attack the Jets?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm concerned about. I mean, anybody who looks at that tape is going to go, aha, that's how you handle a Salah Ulbrecht defense. And the other thing that concerns me is that we don't seem to have too many tricks up our sleeve. And Ulbrecht has even talked about this. We have a very simple defense, he says. It's the way it is. Everybody knows how we're going to attack them. We know how they're going to attack us, and it's best man win, mano y mano. Well, in today's day and age where everybody has the tape 24 hours after the game's over, including the fans, it's not like the old days. You really have a problem when you're sitting there going, we're going to be simple. We're going to do the same things. We're not going to disguise much. We're not going to change anything up. We're going to be stubborn. We're going to play cover four, cover three, and cover one, which is what we played. And that's what we play. And we don't switch it up. And we're going to have a 4-man front. And we're going to just do this and do it all game long. And now everyone sees how to attack it. Now there are countermeasures that you can do, and that's the question, I guess, for Salah and Albrecht, whether they're going to realize that, okay, this is how people are going to attack us now. What do we do in response to that? And if the answer is nothing, then we're probably going to have a very long season, or we're just going to have to outscore people, which would be a switch. That'd be different. But that's the problem that I do have, and I've had that problem with this defense and with the stubbornness of this coaching staff regarding defense the entire time they've been here. Now it's been working fine, and so they've been able to get around it to some degree. So you can't argue much with that. But to me, it seems like the real problem is, in the modern age, it's hard for me to understand why teams don't have more of just like a tool bag of things that you go to in defense. It could be that you're a four down front that you're one gapping, okay, against a certain team in certain situation. Okay, well, the next week you may want to do a three down front where you're two gapping, and you may want to run a lot more man against this team, but zone against that team. And you should have like a toolkit of tools that you apply to different problems that the offense may present to you. Somebody like a Tua on Miami and their offense with McDaniel is very, very different than Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. And so why are you going to have the same tool to try to solve the problem of Tua and Miami as you do Lamar Jackson and Baltimore? They're two very different problems. So that's what worries me the most. We'll see what they do though. But if they don't figure this out, I mean, obviously it's going to be a long season.
So then I guess I got to ask you this question, Frankie. Would you say the Jets defense is overrated?
Yes.
Really?
I mean, last year we got away with it because we had superior talent. Like if you remember, we had Quentin Jefferson was having a great year before he got injured. We
Right.
also had JFM on the team. We also had Bryce Huff for situations that were situational. And then, and he was great for what he did. He was not great for paying him $17 million a year. And that was the problem. Somebody wanted to pay him that. He's not really worth that. He's a situational player, but he's great at what he does. And then we had the sort of the monkey wrench, I guess you could call it, or some sort of all-in-one tool of
All
called
purpose tool?
JFM.
Yeah.
Yeah, an all-purpose tool like a Leatherman, right? The called JFM on our team. And he was great for our team. Now, why Joe Douglas felt the need to get rid of him, I don't know. I think if you think about our offseason, that's the most curious thing that happened. Why did we get rid of JFM, Gunny? Can you tell me what? I mean, he would have taken a pay cut. He just didn't want
Yep.
to take an extreme pay cut that JD was proposing, like an extreme pay cut for him. And he was like, no, wait, I'll go down a little bit, but I'm not going down to where you wanted me to go down to. And we know that because he redid his contract with Denver and took a little
Yep.
less money and for an extra year or so, I think it is. So That's the part that I don't get about this whole offseason, and that changes a lot.
The JFM aspect, I'm not gonna lie to you, was definitely a head scratcher. It didn't make sense, like you said it before. He was a perfect all-purpose tool. You can kind of bring him out there, put him on the edge. You can put him in the middle. He was great at creating pressure. The guy did a little bit of everything, right? He was a force and impact guy and stopping the run. That to me was I think the most painful loss in terms of our defensive line. I think JFM was I think underappreciated in the sense that like when he was leaving, I thought to myself, you know what? All right, I get it. We're making more room. We got the Hassan Reddick thing down the pipeline. So to me, it kind of made some kind of sense in regards to the why. But you have a game like last night, man, when the defensive line looked like some baby boys, like baby back. I can't say I'm monetized now, so I'm trying to avoid the profanity if I can. But like they look like some baby boys playing against grown men. The 49ers O line with a guy like Trent Williams that just showed up 2 days ago bullied this team that's so well prepared because they've been getting extra snaps during the freaking pre and during training camp. Like it how is stopping the run still an issue? I get it. It hasn't been the strength of our defense for quite some time, but you would think it's something that over the last 3 years, it being an issue for this defense that Salah, Ulbrich, these two defensive geniuses would have figured out a way to at least, you know what I'm saying, be a problem for offenses. Because that was embarrassing last night. And I know it's the 49ers. I know not many teams are going to have the caliber of players on their roster that's going to spread the defense a little bit. They're not going to have the Kyle Shanahan's out there to go ahead and kind of dial up all these exotic freaking runs and play actions. I understand that, right? Like the Shanahan's go back 2 generations of doing exactly this, making mediocre or no name running backs look like they're elite. This is what they do. They've done it to us now. They're going to do it to 95% of the league. You know what I'm saying, going on throughout the season, but when you talk about a defense that's supposed to be a Super Bowl caliber defense, we didn't see that last night. We saw a defense get bullied, they got punked, and it was embarrassing. And it goes back to the coaching aspect. How inept is our coaching staff? Do you have any faith and confidence in this coaching staff at all?
Well, it's hard to say that I don't because they've done well the last few years, but with this personnel, you also have to wonder. So the idea is that inside zone and duo run plays are always going to be a problem for a wide nine, four down front, one gapping defense. That's just the way it is. Everybody knows, and the world knows. If you remember the games that Tony Romo did on TV against us, he was pointing this out. He would put a big circle in the middle, going, "Here's where they should run," and then they would run there, and and it's like, yeah, everybody kind of knows against this defense that's what you do. But the way we mitigated in the past was we had people like JFM and so forth, and teams would get a lot of yards, but we would stiffen up. If you remember, we're famous for bend but don't break.
Not
We
break.
would
Yeah.
stiffen up in the red zone. We would stop them, and they would kick a field goal instead, and then it didn't really matter because then we couldn't score. Our offense was inept, blah blah blah. But that was really we've never really stopped the run with this defense, and what we really should do is figure out why it is that San Francisco can stop the run. They run the same defense we do.
Same defense. Same
So
same schematics.
is it
I mean,
Brett?
it's
Is it?
Salah's defense, but somehow, some way they figured it out.
I mean, is it Javon Hargrave that they have who's better than our interior players, or at least when we put Quinnen on the end, which I also don't understand. What are we doing with that?
Ridiculous.
Uh,
Yep.
let's take our best interior player and put him outside. Oh, that'll stall the inside runs. But but like maybe they're bringing safeties down in the box. This is where film study comes into play, and I haven't gotten to that yet. So admittedly, I haven't studied the film yet. But like maybe they're bringing their safeties down and they're helping in the box, and they're leaving their corners one on one with receivers. Maybe that's what they're doing, and maybe we're
Uh,
afraid to do that, and maybe that's what we got to do. Chuck Clark. See, I thought Chuck Clark was going to be a key to this game for this very reason. I thought
yep.
they were going to bring Chuck Clark down into the box. We were going to play one high and let Tony Adams decide who he's going to help, but then put Chuck Clark in the box, and then that's how we're going to do the run fits to stop the run. Well, I don't think we did that to any great extent, and so you have to wonder why, and then also study the film of San Francisco and see how is it that they now maybe it's just because Fred Warner's a freaking you know uh,
A, a
Superman.
man amongst boys. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. Maybe he's just that good. I don't know, but I mean, we got good linebackers too, so I don't know.
I don't know, Frankie. I just the inability to adjust and just sit there as a coaching staff, right? As they watch their identity get bullied up and down the field, man. Look, as a father, if I were to watch my kids getting bullied the way the Jets defense got bullied last night, I would have intervened. Some way, somehow, I would have intervened. Am I going to go ahead and talk to them how to go ahead and protect themselves, or am I going to get involved? I would have done something. But you watch our coaching staff sit on the sidelines, like, damn, that's really happening to our boys, and just let it happen. Just sat there helplessly. I just it's concerning because I think everybody who's watching this team, or as Jets fans, we all have the thought process of we're trying to make a push to be Super Bowl contenders. But last night, man, it kind of brought me back to the. And I still think this team is very talented. I'm not freaking out. I think we're going to go ahead and surprise some people. I think we're going to I believe those things, but I don't think we brought Aaron Rodgers or we've done everything we've done to go ahead and just make it to the playoffs. I think the goal is to potentially compete for a Super Bowl. Last night, we saw what a championship caliber team looks like. And all we learned last night is the New York Jets are not on par. And where do we go from here? Like how do we get to that? Can we get to that point is the real question.
I think one of the things we're going to have to decide is, can Jamie and Sherwood cover anyone? Can Jamie and Sherwood cover tight ends? Can he cover running backs? Because if the answer is yes, then this one of the solutions to this problem is you take Ashton Davis off the field and you put Jamie and Sherwood on the field when Ashton is on the field. So one of the things that we do is that we're a base nickel team. Like, not
Right.
technically, base is technically 4-3, but we run 75 to 80% nickel. So we're essentially a base nickel team.
Okay.
And so Michael Carter generally is on the field a lot. But what Ulbricht's been doing is taking Carter off the field and putting Ashton on when he wants someone a little bit bigger to play the run. But as we saw last night, Ashton Davis is not that guy. He just is not.
No.
He was terrible against the pass and he was terrible against the run. He was just bad. And so the question is, when you want a bigger defender on and you're not sure if they're going to run, like if he's sure they're going to run, he brings Sherwood on. That's a run. He's a run stopper for us. Um, but if he's not sure, he brings Davis on because he wants the extra protection of coverage and stopping the run in theory, even though it hasn't worked out that way, at least not yesterday for Davis. So the question would be, okay, can Sherwood cover anyone? Because if he can, then you can leave him on the field more. You can basically give him Ashton Davis's snaps, take away the big nickel, run more base, but and then Michael Carter will play our nickel as always. But you just increase share, and that way you maybe get your run stuffer. Now, he did miss a couple of tackles uncharacteristically, Sherwood, last night, so that was also weird. He
Yeah.
never misses any tackles, that guy, but he missed a few yesterday, so that's also strange. But that could be what they decide. For example, looking at the film, like Ashton, I don't know, he doesn't have it. Let's try and roll with Sherwood to stop the run, and then, but if they pass and Sherwood's on the field, he's going to need to cover either running backs or tight ends, and he's going to need to be able to do that.
Well, the defense was just one side of it, right? I think when you look at it, the ability for that defensive line to create no pressure, to it can't stop the run, to get manhandled and bullied like that up and down the field, as frustrating as demoralizing as that is, I think we all were hoping that we were going to look at the offensive side of the football and feel a lot better about the offense with the additions of guys like Mike Williams. You know what I'm saying? Braylon Allen. Question for you: why do we have Mike Williams if the intention is not to use him?
Well, that was strange. I said on the live stream yesterday, it's not. They said he was going to be eased in, but we didn't know if that meant like he was going to play less snaps or he was going to play at a lower quality of play. Like, is he at 75%, but he's going to play his snaps at a 75% of his normal quality, or is he going to be limited in his snaps? Well, it turns out he's going to be very limited in his snaps. He only got about 9. So we didn't know that going into it. So that's an interesting thing, and I think it's surprising considering what we saw in practice, what we saw in training camp. He seemed to be moving around well to where
Yeah,
he could run his routes for 20 snaps, you'd think. So I don't know. But on the other hand, it's hard to really argue with it because Alan Lazard came through and had a nice game, even though he had that drop early and we were all tearing our hair out, I think, at
yep,
that point in time. but
yep.
but after that, he played really well, and maybe that's a good thing. I mean, if look, if Williams could have gone, I'm sure he would have. There's no reason to keep him back unless he had to be kept back. I mean, so I don't know. That it was a weird one, but they must think it's better to have him active for 9 snaps, 9, 10 snaps than make him inactive and activate someone else. So, it's just the way it goes.
Okay, well then, so let's say that they're trying to go ahead and ease Mike Williams in. Maybe there's some concerns there, even though Mike Williams has talked about how he's been 100%, you know what I'm saying, for several months now. They baby stepped him through training camp. He kept talking about he was ready to go. They're being they're being cautious. They're being very cautious. I think they've been overly cautious. The whole not playing them in the preseason thing, I was adamantly against it. You saw all kinds of rust last night, but again, I digress. So you don't bring in Mike Williams, but you drafted Corley and you drafted Braylon Allen, two individuals who have looked really good in the preseason and in training camp in snippets. Why did we not use those guys if we're not going to use freaking Mike Williams?
Well, those guys. So I had it when they brought Tyrod Taylor in. So if people who don't know, I keep drive charts, so I have my own data here. But I had it that we ran 36 plays with Rodgers before Taylor came in. 36 plays. That's not a lot of plays, really. So the offense really just didn't get rolling enough to start getting our backups in there. I mean, we had to get Brees in there. Garrett's going to be in there. I mean, we just didn't run enough plays to get our rookie backups in. They were able to get in. I mean, Allen had one run, so these guys they got their feet wet. Stiggers got in there for a play or two. I don't really mind that, but we just didn't get rolling enough to where. I mean, those guys are going to come in when Brees is tired. Like when Garrett's tired, when people get tired when we're having these long drives. And we just didn't have long drives, so they just didn't have a chance to get in. And then Taylor came in, and then it was garbage time. So
Okay, well then going back to the Brees Halls of the world, right? Somebody who I think I've been very, very vocal about him being RB1 this season. Again, I still believe that's going to be the case. I've been talking about how he's going to go ahead and literally have a 2,000-yard all-purpose season. He's going to catch this ball, run the ball. Last night, again, O-line didn't help him. We'll get into that a little bit later. But Brees Hall, though, man, with the fumble and then the freaking drops, is is the expectations too big for Brees? Is if have we put on too much on the kid? That he's in his own head, because those were very uncharacteristic freaking misses and mishaps by him last night, and in a game where you were hoping you'd get the best out of your offense and try to play as flawless as possible. Brees Hall was a culprit, you know what I'm saying, and pretty much contributed to last night's loss. What's going on with Brees?
Well, it's hard to say, but if you think back to his college days, this was a guy who scored a touchdown in like 60 straight games or some
Yep.
crazy number. He was like a touchdown machine. He was the focal point of their offense, and his quarterback was Brock Purdy, by the way. And he was, so, uh, but, and not only his teammate, his roommate. So, I mean, he's been leaned on before to be counted on to be, the man in an offense, and he proved he could do it at Iowa State. But that's Iowa State, so I don't know. I'm going to chalk it up to he just had a bad game. Now the fumble, I will say, that's Fred Warner doing a peanut punch like Fred Warner. Now Fred Warner does that to everyone. I mean, this is a known thing that he does. And so he's great at it. And those things are hard to avoid. I was watching the Miami game, and Miami basically won that
Yeah,
game
won that
because of
game.
a
Yep.
peanut punch by Javon Holland against Travis Etienne going in for a touchdown. The game was pretty much going to be over. He peanut punches it out. They recover. The whole game changes, momentum and everything. So Fred Warner got a perfect peanut punch on that one. I don't know. How do you stop the peanut punch? What's the anti? I don't think anybody's come up with the anti peanut
Not yet.
punch just yet.
Nah.
So,
When
but
properly
yeah, he
executed, you know what I'm saying, it works.
yeah, it works. And he dropped the pass, and guys drop passes, and that's just an unfortunate part of the game. So I don't think so. He was able to get going a little bit later in the game. He did have some, yardage both in the pass and the run game. So for the most part, though, it was a difference in, you look at it, it was a difference in the offensive lines. Jordan Mason's just a fungible running back. He's just running back, he's just a
Yep.
running back. And they opened gigantic holes, and he had 150 yards. Brees Hall's a special running back. We all know that. And our offensive line didn't open up any holes, and he didn't run anywhere. And that's really the story of it. People want to talk about the running backs and the wide receivers and the quarterbacks because that's who the fantasy teams have and get the points. It's really the offensive line. Offensive line, offensive line, offensive line. I will always say that. That is the root cause of success or failure on offense. And if nobody's opening lines, you can't, there's not much anybody can do.
Well, talking about the offensive line, listen, the run blocking was pretty atrocious. They couldn't generate any kind of movement, but all I heard during training camp was how they were moving mountains and they were going to be great, and all these holes were opening up. Is it possible that they only looked that good because they were, practicing against our defensive line, who seemed to be susceptible to getting pushed around and opening up holes for running backs?
Well, you know what? That number one, we could look at that, but also the joint practices. Maybe in the future we need to joint practice against like good teams.
That might
Remember,
help. Yeah,
we joint practice against the Giants. Look how they looked in week one.
they
Not too
got
good.
murked.
Yeah, yeah. And then we played the Panthers, who
Murked.
uh-huh. And then we played the Commanders. Not so good either.
That's so good. Yep.
So maybe in the future we might want to line up some competition for these joint practices so we'll know what we actually look like instead of lining up these tomato cans. But it's one of those things. I see Big Will's in the chat saying, "Hey, what about the preseason? We didn't play these guys. Maybe that would knock off some rust." That's true, but if any one of these guys got hurt, Big Will, you know, we all would have been screaming to the high heavens that they shouldn't be playing in the preseason. So it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Half the teams don't do it, half the teams do. Probably the best argument for it is that the Chiefs, including Mahomes, play their players some percent of the games of preseason. So if you want to make the argument, you say, well, Andy Reid and Mahomes do it. So look at
The
them.
49ers do too. The 49ers played their starters in the preseason. I saw freaking Purdy out there going into the second quarter in the preseason game, and in my head, I was thinking to myself, what are you doing? It's the second quarter. It's the preseason. They had him out there. I'm team. If you had put them out there against some competition where the bullets were real, where you could get hit, I think you kind of go ahead and get those guys in the mindset of like, okay, football is back. I was vocal about it in the preseason. I was told to shut up and color, and that Rodgers wouldn't be rusty, and that all the extra snaps they got in practice and in training camp were going to be more valuable than live bullets flying at them. But in hindsight, you look at this game last night. We were missing tackles uncharacteristically. We had to go ahead and let Sauce Gardner catch his breath apparently for a freaking half a quarter because he was not in football shape. Aaron Rodgers, who even later on in this press conference said, like, yeah, man, after I got that first hit, I got back up and I felt really good. And then maybe next week I'll be able to move out of the pocket a little more and actually try to go ahead and scramble. So he's admitting he's not 100% because he hasn't had live bullets flying at him. So, and I understand that the thought process of, well, what if he gets hurt? It sucks, right? It sucks, but it is football. And unfortunately, the only way you get good at football is you got to play football. And I think we were suspect to that last night. I do believe there was some rust factor to it. I don't believe our defense is that bad. I just don't. But to get bullied the way it wasn't even like they didn't know what was coming. They just couldn't physically stop what was coming. They knew they were going to get run on. They couldn't adjust. They couldn't make it. They were fatigued. They were tired. They got bullied and manhandled. I think not being in football shape plays a role in that. But again, like you said, right? Had Aaron Rodgers gotten hurt in the preseason on a meaningless snap, you know what I'm saying? The sky is falling. And I sit back and I'm like, maybe I was wrong about doing the preseason thing. I guess it's all relative. It sucks though, because it definitely looked like the 49ers were significantly better prepared than we were.
I mean, the other argument too is the other thing I think about right now. The Rams, famously, Sean McVay, who's supposedly a genius, right? Boy genius. He doesn't. He famously does not play his players in the preseason at all. And so the season started, and what happened? His entire starting offensive line is now out for long periods of time.
Yep.
So, I mean, and he's supposedly a boy genius. So I don't know. Maybe we should play him a little bit.
Yeah, man. I think yesterday it just made me feel that much more. We should have gotten some starters, a few snaps, even if you're not going to play them a whole quarter. And I get that, I understand that. Hey, Rodgers, you're going to have freaking 25 plays. Go get them, whether it's in the first drives, whatever, 25 plays. Because I do believe just the mentality of knowing, like, man, getting hit is real now. No longer can you go ahead and get to the quarterback, but you're not going to hit him. You think Rodgers doesn't know that he can escape from the pocket when there's no real contact's going to be had. And I think the mentality matters, man. And again, you're right. I forgot. That's a great. Sean McVay right now has no offensive line. Everybody started in week one. Damn near all of them are hurt right now. They had to go ahead and patch their offensive line together during that game. But hey, they still put up a fight, though. I got to give him props for that. He's called the boy wonder for a reason. They still took it down to the wire. I see we got a couple of questions. What mountains did the Jets O-line move in training camp? Apparently, our defensive line, apparently. But it's not
Well,
really as impressive now since anybody can do it.
We did get reports, Harlan. Harlan, we do have to go. Unfortunately, we have to go by what these beat reporters tell us about camp. The best one is probably Robbie Sabo, I would say, when he's there.
Yeah, I love
But
Robbie.
yeah, but they were saying it looks different. And one of the things I've always said about the beat reporters, as much as I hate them for the most part, when they say something looks different than the year before, they're usually right about that because they can see with their eyes. I mean, they have eyes. So and they were saying it looks different. So we had to trust them, Harlan. I mean, did you go to camp, Harlan? I didn't go to training camp. Did you go to camp?
I didn't go to training camp. I did not.
We didn't go to camp, so we can't judge ourselves. We got to go off of what they tell us.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what it boils down to is you look at this team, and again, expectations are so massive, right? And I knew it. I'm watching that game, and for the record, I did not have the New York Jets going into this game and winning that game. I didn't. I predicted them to lose that game. I think, Frankie, you thought they were going to lose the game too, right? Like,
yeah.
Nobody
I said on the live stream that they would win, but you kind of have to do that to stay alive.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? But like when I did my prediction, my preview, I said, as much as I would love to tell you we're going to go freaking 20-0, that's not going to happen. And the first L starts here, right? I had us losing to the 49ers. And did I feel better about CMC not being there? Yeah, I convinced myself like, man, that's a huge advantage for us. But ultimately, this is the team that is the reigning NFC champion. I mean, literally the floor for them is the NFC Championship game, and the ceiling has been the Super Bowl over the last several years. So they're those guys. It was bad, man. I mean, ultimately, another thing I looked at was like Rodgers seemed pretty stiff again behind that line of scrimmage. He had great time in terms of, the pass protection, but you're used to seeing a guy like Aaron Rodgers, escape the pocket, make plays downfield and whatnot. And it looked like he seemed uncomfortable, like he was kind of forcing himself to stay in the pocket to go ahead and get the ball out. He also alluded to the fact that, maybe as he gets more comfortable, he might start taking a couple more scrambles and getting out of the pocket more. So do you think Aaron Rodgers can move around if he has to, or do you think like this is the new him now? He's just this new stiff statue back there and he has to learn to play the game a different way?
No. I think he's the same. Like the way I see it, he always looks a little weird. He's not, he's not Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or one of the, but when he runs, he does look a little awkward. He always has. He's never been that fluid type of athlete in terms of running. In terms of throwing, yes, but in terms of running, no. So I think he's kind of the same. Maybe he's a quarter step, slower or something, but I think he's going to be fine. You did see him move around a bit during the game, and so it was the first game you have to expect rust. I mean, it was the first game off an Achilles injury, so you expect. I mean, he hasn't played football in a lot of months. Which
I'm not mistaken, 580 days is what the number was. This is the last time he played a full game.
So that would be another reason if you were going to make the case of play in the preseason. That may be, another point in the argument for him to have played in the preseason because he hasn't played in so long. But nonetheless, it is what it is. So he, I think it was more just a little bit of rust. You saw that even a couple of his passes were a little bit off, a little bit behind Garrett, a little bit off on that fourth down play. Could have been better. He's usually, some of his passes were amazing. The old Aaron Rodgers precision, and that was like, okay, if he does that more often, it's going to be all right. But a couple of his passes were a little behind, a little bit off. So I think it's a little bit of rust, honestly. And then I think probably he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be fine. I think so.
You know what? Now that we've talked about the negatives, man, we've spent about 35 minutes just talking about how bad it was. I think the Aaron Rodgers conversation is a great segue into the positives that we saw from last night. Listen, Aaron Rodgers can still sling it. Like I watched that game last night, and he made 3 throws that I thought to myself, Him and maybe three other individuals in the league can make that throw and nail it. The one throw to freaking Alan Lazard in stride on the left hash mark, put it perfectly. You know what I'm saying? Right over the top of the defender. The throw where he got caught up off guards, boom, got Lazard into the end zone. And the throw to freaking Garrett Wilson where he throws the ball behind the cornerback has his back to him. He throws it up where only Garrett Wilson can get it. Those were three throws, and I'm like, that's Aaron freaking Rodgers, man. Like making that throw behind the freaking cornerback's head and letting your wide receiver go get it. That's freaking Aaron Rodgers. So there were times last night where I saw him, and you know what? People will say I'm being a homer, but listen, PFF hates our guts. And PFF last night, they did their breakdown and analyzed it. Aaron Rodgers was the fifth ranked quarterback of the weekend. So they're seeing it too in terms of what he was able to accomplish. Again, maybe I'm being a homer, Frankie. When it comes to the Aaron Rodgers, the positive, like what did you see last night that makes you feel like, you know what? We got Aaron Rodgers as our quarterback.
Well, I think the rating, because if you look at his line score, it doesn't look that great if you just look at the box score. It's like, 61% percent. But if you look behind the numbers, for example, PFF also had Aaron with two big time throws, which is one of their stats that only they have, and no turnover worthy plays. And that's unusual. Usually you see 0-0 there or 0-1 or 1, maybe the guy has a 1. So two big time throws in 36 plays. Now we didn't have a lot of plays also. So out of those 36 plays, he had two big time throws and no turnover worthy plays. And just the way he ran the offense, I think we're going to have to get used to. We saw him, during the watch along. Green Bean was calling it a meeting. Okay, we're having another meeting, but because when Aaron Rodgers was calling everybody together at the line of scrimmage, what is he doing? He's audibling and he's telling he's changing the protection, he's changing the play, and he was doing that a lot, right? And so that to me bodes well because it mitigates Hackett, right? When Hackett makes a play call, it's just a suggestion for Rodgers. Here's a suggestion. Then when he gets to the line of scrimmage, he looks and sees what the defense is doing, and he decides whether it's a good suggestion or no. This is a terrible suggestion. We're going to do something else. And that's what he was doing. He was calling all of his meetings. He was telling everybody what to do. And that's what a veteran quarterback does. And so I think it looked a little weird at times. We were kind of making fun of it. But at the same time, that's exactly what you want because you have to react in real time to what the defense gives you. You can't just run whatever the play caller calls because what if the defense gives you something you're not expecting? You're just going to run it? Like, what if you call a run play and they have 10 people in the box? You're just going to run the run? Like, that's ridiculous. You have to react to whatever the defense is doing, and there's nobody better at that than Aaron Rodgers. So looking forward to more of that.
Yeah, and listen, when it comes to the whole Aaron Rodgers debate, man, like I know there was, for me, going into yesterday's game, I'm not going to pretend here that I'm not scared. I was scared that he might not make it through a full game. I was literally all day at work, man. I'm thinking to myself, man, God, what if he gets back out there again and he gets hurt? Like literally, I couldn't help myself. The PTSD of what happened last year came flowing through. As we got closer to the game, I found myself being more nervous. But he went out there, man, and after he got past his fifth play, I was just like, all right, okay, we're moving. After he took his first hit, I was like, God, he got up. Okay, good, we're moving. But last night, let's be clear. I think people don't realize this, right? So I want to give a shout out to Infrared Jets for this stat line because this isn't one of my own. But Aaron Rodgers, well, this is going to incorporate Tyrod Taylor as well. So if you remove the 8 minutes that Tyrod Taylor was responsible for playing and getting a score, Aaron Rodgers put up 13 points in 14 minutes of possession time. I don't know if that's not considered efficient or not, but we're talking about 13 points in 14 minutes of time of possession. Give him the ball back. I think if he was able to get the ball back more, it's Aaron freaking Rodgers, man. Once he gets going into a rhythm, take advantage of that. Get the ball back in his hands as fast as possible. Let the man cook. He didn't have a lot of chance to go ahead and expose that last night. And I think after he got that Alan Lazard touchdown, I think if the Jets defense had shown up and gotten a stop and got the ball back in that man's hands, I don't have a doubt in my mind that we wouldn't have scored again. I really don't. I think once he got into that rhythm, man, they were in trouble. 13 points, 14 minutes, man. What do you think about Aaron Rodgers when he has the ball in his hands?
Well, I do agree that, well, and it just depends on, if he was coming to the line and saying, look, like I was saying, we need to throw more on first down. But if he was coming to the line and saying, look, they're giving us the run, we got to take it, and we still couldn't execute it because our blocking was off for whatever
Yep.
reason, then you can't really blame them. Because if they're giving you the run, you got to take it, and if they're giving you the pass, you got to take it. You got to take what the defense gives you. Otherwise, you're just banging your head up against the wall. But then you need to execute no matter what. I mean, so they could give you the run. They could give you a light bounce all day. If you don't block people, it doesn't matter. Um, but yeah, I think as time goes on, we should be throwing on first down much more.
So, do you think the New York Jets potentially win that game last night if the defense were able to at least cause two turnovers? Or are they more in the conversation of winning that game if we were to get two turnovers?
Yeah, I mean, we were even kind of almost in it at the end, even though we were thoroughly thrashed. If we played anywhere near what we normally do on defense or what we did last year on defense, yeah, I think we would have been in a much better position. And who's to say that? I mean, we need to keep in mind that when the offense is rolling, the defense is on the bench. That's where we want them to be, sitting over there, relaxing, have a pina colada, and just relax over there. Let us cook over here while we're on offense. And that's what we want. And then that would eat up more of the clock, and then we get more of the rhythm, and then you get more people into the game, and then you get to see Braylon Allen and Mike Williams and all these people that we wanted to see, Malachi, Malachi Corley, all these people we would see if we had more plays and if we were rolling, but it just didn't work out that way. You're still muted, Gunny.
Appreciate you. Well, it's week one. And I'll say this again. I believe the 49ers were the toughest competition on our schedule for this season. We went into their house, you know what I'm saying? They're still pissed off about losing to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and they took it out on us. Simple as that. But I will say this: Garrett freaking Wilson was another individual that stood out as a positive for me in this game. We're talking about a guy who was dealing with double coverages and still coming up with big plays. Garrett Wilson is a dog. Like, and again, I say that, and I do believe he was rusty in that game. So once the rust gets busted off, and I think he's going to be a force, man. The Rodgers to Wilson connection looked fluid, looked deadly, looked fun watching it last night. And there's not many freaking teams in the NFL that can do what the 49ers defense can do. So I see a very, very fun year for Garrett Wilson. What did you think about our boy G5 in the season opener?
Yeah, he's looking good. I tell you something that I did notice. I think teams are taking extra shots at Garrett. If you want to know the truth,
I
I
did
think
notice that too. Yep.
I think they have looked at him and they're like, look, the only negative about this kid is he's kind of thin, you know, and he's kind of thin and frail, not frail, but I mean, he's kind of thin on the thin side. So let's take some shots. If we get an extra shot, let's hit him. If he's out of bounds, let's hit him out of bounds. You remember a couple of times last year, even they did that. And I think they have the instructions of let's take extra shots on this kid because that's the only chance we have, which is really kind of disgusting if you think about it.
Very shady.
But
Yeah.
I've noticed that he's it's after the whistle, the play's over and people are still trying to take shots, and I for one do not appreciate it.
I would like to go ahead and see more frustration from the offensive line whenever you see a guy like Garrett Wilson taking a hit. Get pissed off, get mad the way they do. If it was going to be Aaron Rodgers, because I'm with you. I've noticed it as well, and in my head, I just thought to myself, it's football. Am I overthinking it? But I've heard it from you. I've heard it from other content creators and a couple of other individuals who weren't even Jets fans, who are like, man. They look like they're going to go ahead and pretty much take out Garrett Wilson. And I've even had them say, like, what are y'all going to do if they take out Garrett Wilson? So I think it's out there to where, like, if they can go ahead and get an extra hit in here and there, do it. Because if Garrett Wilson is not in the game, that's very, very limited in terms of the passing options. But I got to say this, man. Garrett Wilson, for as tiny as he is, I don't want to say frail, right? But he is skinny. He's a skinny dude, like real skinny dude. So is Sauce Gardner. And we saw Sauce Gardner last night, you know what I'm saying? Go to tackle a guy like Debo Samuel, who's like a little freaking, pocket muscle man, right? And I don't know if Sauce wanted to be out there anymore after that. I think when he went off the field to get his little 30 or not 30 minutes, like 10-minute break, or whatever it was a business decision based off of him having to make that tackle. And again, he's a frail guy too. Like, and now I gotta ask the question, man. Like, I know I'm trying to stay in the positives here, but those are two playmakers on defense and on offense. If the Jets go down those guys, do we have a viable plan B if that happens to be our situation?
Well, at cornerback, I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, we have Stiggers, we have Eccles. They're decent backups. I mean, Eccles is a decent backup. We know that. Stiggers, we got to see what he is. Who knows? And we got JBC, and we got guys um, on the practice squad. And you remember last year against Philadelphia when I think Reed and Gardner were out with COVID. Those guys
Those
came
boys
off the
played.
practice squad
Yeah.
basically, and we did just fine. So probably would be okay. We probably would be in all quarters. We play quarters 100% of the time. Probably in a situation like that. But I think Wilson and Gardner have to have an off-season program next year where it's like they need to bulk up a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not going to ever be huge dudes.
No.
They have thin frames, but they can bulk up some. And I think especially Sauce. I mean, Sauce needs to work on his tackling also. He's not a good tackler. That's not something he was good at coming out of college, and he's still not good at it at all. So that's something that he needs to work on one of these off seasons. It would be nice to have. Now, a lot of cornerbacks can't tackle. You know, it's just sort of the way it is. They're cover
Yeah.
people. They're not tackle
Yeah.
people. But it'd be nice if he could, and so that's something he might want to do.
Well, I mean, staying on the positive side, right? Like, we talk about, G5, Garrett Wilson, what he can look like. I think the offensive line, in terms of at least in pass protection, looked good to me. And people told me I'm crazy, but I watched the game again today, like a dummy. I watched it twice today, right? Just trying to go ahead and make sure when I stepped in here today and talked to you about it, I had some positives to look at. And people aren't giving credit, I think, to that offensive line and what it was able to accomplish in terms of pass protection. Aaron Rodgers had time. But even though he had time, he was also one of the fastest in getting the ball out of his hands over the weekend. How did the offensive line look to you in terms of pass protection? I know we've already identified them as run. The run blocking was atrocious, but pass pro looked good to me. So what do you think about that?
Well, surprisingly, the two worst at pass pro were two people we were very high on, which was Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. They had very bad pass efficiency grades, and pass efficiency grades is not really a subjective opinion. It's how many pressures you allow in relative to the number of pass pro snaps you do. And Tyron was the worst on our whole team. So now he's going against Bosa and some of these monsters. So I think he lost for the most part. He had a bad, I think Tyron had a bad day, especially for him. And that's probably one of the worst days he's going to have, hopefully, for us. And hopefully that improves. But the other one who was bad, very bad, the worst offensive lineman we had overall in general in this game was Morgan Moses. I think that's a surprise. Now we got to see if that continues, and if it does, uh, the good news is we got a kid on the bench that we can replace him with, who's a first round pick, whose name is Olu Fashanu. And so if Morgan is just cooked, or maybe Morgan, hey, he fell off a cliff or something, or maybe something with his pec, from the surgery he had, whatever it may be, if he continues to play poorly, that's something to watch. It's surprising, but the good news is we got a backup to come in and take his place if he needs to. But he was very bad, and Tyron was very bad. But the other three were good in pass pro, so that's the good news. So 3 out of 5 ain't bad, I guess.
3 out of 5 ain't bad. 3 out of 5 ain't bad. And again, I reiterate the fact that you're not going to see a lot of Nick Bosa's lined up against the New York Jets offensive line moving forward. You're talking about, in my opinion, one of the top 3 elite edge rushers, defensive linemen in the game. Nick Bosa is different, right? Very few individuals are in his, in his tier when it comes to pass rushers. But yeah, Tyron Smith is an All Pro. And he's a technician. He's been great at this game of football for years. The only question mark we ever really had about him is, of course, injury. He came out of there healthy, which is a good thing. So I think it'll be better. I think you're right. We've probably seen the worst of Tyron Smith. Morgan Moses was shocking. You know what I'm saying? This is the guy who was usually a sure thing. Predominantly in run blocking, though. This is a guy that was a mauler in run blocking. He loves for it. He feeds off of it. He was bad all around last night. Again, I go back to the rust thing. This is the first time these guys are having to endure live bullets as well. And again, it's a battle of the trenches. You got to go ahead and get those reps in. Those reps are important. You got to get those in. So I'm hoping that's the worst we see of our offensive line. I think they left a lot to be desired. I still felt in terms of Rodgers having time, I could be happy about that. I felt like he was able to go ahead and kind of stand back there and do his thing. I think they only gave up 2 sacks last night, and if I'm not mistaken, 6 pressures. And that was against the 49ers defense. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 sacks, 6 pressures against that defense, I don't know if you could have asked for much better. Again, Aaron Rodgers had a lot to do with it and getting the ball out of his hands as quickly as he did. But that to me is something you can go ahead and look forward and say, okay, in the worst case scenario, we're able to go ahead and avoid some of this defensive line threats.
Yeah, so I think it's a lot to look forward to. I mean, I think we can expect better. That's for sure. Whereas last year it was like, oh boy, we're never gonna. I mean, the guys just weren't good players who were playing, and that's a problem. So I just think a couple of guys were off, and we'll look forward to. I mean, if you think about it, if you combine the time to throw, which was 2.33 seconds, which is lightning fast, with in future games, if he keeps that up, and with the time that he needs to throw for when we need longer developing routes, that's a good option.
Yeah, I think ultimately what it boils down to is repetition. I think once we go ahead and get a couple more reps with these guys going into next week, I think we're going to go ahead and see progression. Now, I got to read this from Sean. He says, what if the 49ers beat up on the next bunch of teams, which I 100% believe they're going to. I think they're going to make a lot of teams look bad this season, and I don't believe we'll be the worst of it. Not even close. They're going to do that because they're that good. To me, I have the Lions going to the Super Bowl, but watching them play last night and not miss a beat, I'm like, man, these guys might just be them dogs again to go right back to the Super Bowl over my Lions pick. But he says, I feel we just weren't ready. We would have beaten anyone in our division, Buffalo, Patriots, and Miami. Just my opinion. I don't know about that. I don't know how I feel about that. Buffalo kind of surprised me in regards to how Josh Allen just said, forget it. I got it. Just put him on my back, and I'm going to go ahead and do nasty things and get the win. Do you think we could have beaten, the Miami again with the big, I don't know. Do you think we would have beaten any one of our guys in our division had it been them last night playing against us, vice the 49ers?
Well, I think we would have put up more points. I mean, I watched the Miami game. They were very much out of sorts in the beginning of the game. And so, you had Tua looking like he was terrible. And I was like, man, who is this Tua guy? He's way off. But so they were rusty. And then I also heard, I didn't watch the Buffalo game, but I also heard they were rusty in the beginning. They had a big comeback at the end. For Miami, it was that peanut punch for Jacksonville, who totally blew the game for them. And then they got on a roll and got the momentum going. And then they started clicking and they got all their speed going. So I think we would have done better because those teams don't have as good a defense as the 49ers, not even close. So I think we would have held up better and would have put up more points. But I still think we're going to be in a dogfight with Buffalo and Miami. Miami's tough because of their speed
Yep.
for anybody. When you have Waddle and
And Hill.
Hill and those running backs that they have, I mean, they just have so much speed. And then Tua is just so precise with his accuracy. It's a deadly combination that you don't need him to be John Elway. All you need him to do is just get it quickly
Get it up.
to
Yep.
those speedsters and boom. But he does throw deep passes too. I mean, don't
Yeah.
nowadays. Now he's throwing those bombs. I mean, he used to be
We got to
maybe
stop. I'm glad
yeah,
you said that.
used to be 2 yard Tua. Well, not anymore. Now he's throwing bombs out there. So
Yeah.
I don't think Tua's garbage at all. Indy, I
Listen,
disagree.
I
He
disagree,
looked
Indy.
like garbage in the beginning. I was like, whoa.
Yeah,
But then he
but
got going, man.
listen, I'm a Jets fan through and through, and I will always go to bat for the Jets. I will always talk crap to the other fan bases. I'll always be that dude. But we're lying to ourselves, man. We got to stop. We got to stop this like Tua is trash, Tua is garbage. Tua in this system, Tua with
Yeah.
freaking McDaniel
Right.
has been different. This isn't the same guy we were laughing at before because he couldn't, you know what I'm saying? He couldn't hit an outright. Like, this isn't the same guy. His ability to go ahead and get rid of the ball with timing and precision, trusting where his playmakers are going to be. McDaniel has literally catered an offense to his strength. And let's be honest, man, the dude has been he led the league last year in passing.
Yeah,
I
he
don't
had
know
the
if I
most
can ever
yards.
say his
He had the
elite
most yards in the
had the
league.
most yards in the league last year. And the whole like he can't throw deep, we can't say that anymore. He also
No.
was second, I believe, in air yardage last season. I've gotten to the point now I get it. If you want to say he can't beat good teams, if you want to say he struggles in the cold, I'm with you. But I can't sit here and keep lying, man, and talking about Tua is garbage. I look at this division, the AFC East, and I'm not gonna lie to you. The team that worries me the most is the Dolphins. I know people say, well, the Buffalo Bills. Well, listen, the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen doesn't play well against us. He loses to Zach Wilson. And he shouldn't, but he does consistently. This defense got him figured out. I think we're going to match up very well. It wouldn't even surprise me if we swept the Buffalo Bills. It wouldn't shock me at all. I look at the Dolphins, man, and they're the team that I think if it's not us that takes the division, if they can just get out of their own freaking way, they've got the playmakers to do it. And I think Tua, people keep sleeping on him, man, but this is going to sound crazy. I believe a lot of the Miami Dolphins offense is based off of timing and him doing spot throws and just getting the ball to a spot. You've heard the wide receivers say it. You've heard the freaking backup quarterback say it. Hey, we got to trust we're going to get to a spot. We got to get the ball to the spot throwing. But you look at, I watched Tua get out of the pocket this past weekend and make a couple of throws downfield. That throw to Tyreek Hill downfield, that wasn't a spot throw. That was him getting back to I think it was his third, maybe his second read at worst, and got it to Tyreek Hill on time. If Tua can add that layer of actually going through progressions and still getting the ball out to his playmakers, that's going to be a problem. The Tua is garbage thing, man. We can keep lying to ourselves if we want to, man. But at the end of the day, the guy led the league in passing yards last year, and he was second in air yards. So the whole he's got a baby arm and can't get it deep. We can lie to in debating Miami Dolphins fans about it, but the fact is, this is a safe space. We in the hangar right now. We can be honest. Tua is a quarterback that you've got to respect when you play the Miami Dolphins.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could argue maybe that Tyreek Hill makes Tua because Tyreek Hill changes the complexion of a defense and what he does personally, and then all the attention you have to pay to him opens up other things. So you can make that argument, but I mean, the fact is he's on the team. So I mean, it
Yep.
doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And the other thing is that Miami plays us exactly the way you should play us. In other words, we're gonna always have more of a problem against probably Miami than Buffalo, because Josh Allen likes to sit back there and throw bombs with his big arm and throw these,
Yeah.
and to sit back there and show you that he's Paul Bunyan, and that's the guy, that we can tee off on, and get, because he's going to take time. Those routes have to develop and all that. So that's probably why we've had more success against him. But the Dolphins, with their quick game and to his accuracy, and then run after the catch with all that speed that they have, I think they're going to be harder for us anyway. The way we play defense, they're always going to be harder for us, especially with McDaniel with his creativity. I think probably Shanahan and McDaniel are probably the two worst coaches for us to go up against. Indy saying my mic is very low.
Yeah, I gotta to control it on my side. I can push it up, so I push it up for you. Not sure if that helps out. But to go again, so I want to make sure I clarify this. So what Frankie I think is saying is that Tyreek Hill is obviously the catalyst to that offense. Like he is the heart and soul of it. Like it runs through him. He makes Tua better and his fellow playmakers around him better. But I think I have to disagree in the fact that some would say like, oh, anybody could do it, because we've seen what that offense looks like when any other quarterback is behind center, whether it's Mike White, whether it's freaking I forgot the other dude's name. Wow, I'm having a brain fart. But the Skylar Thompson, is it Skylar Thompson?
Yeah.
Skylar Thompson, whatever. Like we've seen other quarterbacks get behind center and not operate that offense the way it's meant to operate. So I think it takes a special skill set to kind of do what Tua does, man, in terms of sticking to the script. I think when you have those quarterbacks who love to improvise or have the ability to improvise, I'm not saying Tua can improvise. I'm not saying that he's a guy that I would worry. Oh my God, he goes out of the pocket. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be freaking. I'm not worried about that aspect. But like Frankie just said, in terms of getting the ball out quick, on time, and where it's supposed to be, I think few quarterbacks can do that. I don't think there's enough quarterbacks who are disciplined enough to do that if they've got the ability to do more. So I think Tua plays within his structure, within his strengths, and that's what sucks, right? But again, I heard somebody said he's easy to rattle. Indy Jets, he's easy to rattle. If you can get to Tua, we've seen once pressure gets to Tua, he does get rattled. But you still got to get to him. If he's getting the ball out, you know what I'm saying, in 1.8 seconds, it's hard for any defensive line to get to him, and that's what I think is the concern when playing those guys. But yeah, now when I look at the AFC East, the Miami Dolphins, I think this weekend all of them got lucky. I think but again, by lucky I'm saying like a play was made that turned the tide. I don't think the Miami Dolphin Holland punching the ball out was luck. That was a Holland making a play. That was a play that he made that turned the tide. Josh Allen pretty much freaking uh, decided he's going to run for touchdowns, and the Cardinals not seeing Marvin Harrison get open. Kyler Murray couldn't see past because Marvin Harrison was getting open at will. If you watch that game back, they had no answer for Marvin Harrison. Kyler Murray, unfortunately, wasn't either seeing him because he's so short. I don't know what it was, but he couldn't see Marvin Harrison getting open. There was even towards the end, wide open touchdown. Marvin Harrison would have had an easy day if he just threw it up. But I think that they had, you know what I'm saying, they made less mistakes and they were able to win the games. I look at this division and I look at the Miami Dolphins and the Jets could potentially be the ones at the end of it that are going for the title. I just, as much as Josh Allen is arguably the best quarterback in our division, there's they don't have the pieces, man. They just don't have the pieces. And it's at the end of the day, it's still football. You need football players to win football games. And yeah, he had to be Superman this week for them to go ahead and win that game. But you're asking him to do that every single week. You're asking Josh Allen to be your Superman every single week. I don't know if that's sustainable football for a quarterback.
Yeah, it's kind of like Lamar Jackson falls into the same category that you worry about. I mean, he does. He's a Superman, but he takes so many shots that eventually, something's got to break. So, I think Josh Allen falls into the same category, though Josh Allen has a different body type. Still, I mean, these guys take so many hits. That's the only thing you really would worry about as a Ravens fan or as a Bills fan, because those guys are so amazing.
Remember
Otherwise,
Cam Newton? Cam
yeah,
Newton
Cam
was
Newton,
freaking
same
off a
thing.
cliff. Why? Too many hits. His shoulder, his back. He even said it. All those injuries, freaking not making the business decisions because he was freaking trying to get. Literally, Cam Newton went from a league MVP, taking to the Super Bowl, to 2 years later out of the league. Like
Yeah.
those hits matter. So I think Josh Allen is in the mold of a Cam Newton. Like you're big, you're strong, you're fast, cannon for an arm. You can do a little bit of everything. But like Cam Newton, he takes those hits, man. He doesn't protect himself. He just takes those hits. You're asking your quarterback to do that, and it's fun in the interim to watch, and it's exciting. But he's a quarterback, not a running back. Like that's going to take its toll. So, I mean, getting back to the New York Jets here, right? So we talked about freaking Garrett Wilson. Lazard looks like a competent wide receiver 3, maybe a 4. I know he dropped the initial pass, and we wanted to rip his face off when it happened. But Alan Lazard seems to have a connection with Aaron Rodgers. And for me, if that connection is going to allow Aaron Rodgers to have another option other than Garrett Wilson or Brees, so be it. Do you think Alan Lazard, what we saw last night, was more fluke or more what to expect from him now as we go into year 2 of him as a New York Jet?
I don't see why we can't expect it. The man had an 800-yard season with Aaron Rodgers as his trigger man. So why can't he have 600 or 500 here? We're not asking him to be wide receiver 1. We're asking him to be wide receiver 4, essentially, once Williams gets his act together. I guess you could say maybe he's wide receiver 3 until then. But we just need him to be a complementary piece, somebody who nobody pays attention to, and therefore maybe wide open certain times because nobody thinks, hey, we got to shut down Alan Lazard. Nobody's thinking that. So so if he can be a surprise player, great. And then also he's going to block when we're in 11 personnel. If you can have a wide receiver who can block like a Cooper Cup out in Los Angeles, who can come into the line and block as if he's a tight end, but you're doing it out of 11 personnel, which forces most defenses into nickel, then you can block and run out of 11 personnel and you have a great advantage. And so if that's all Alan Lazard did, that would be fantastic. But then he can also, catch passes and put up some numbers. I mean, he had about 90 yards in the game. I don't think any of us saw that coming.
Nope, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, if you had told me before the season or the game started that, hey, your number one wide receiver for this game was going to be Alan Lazard, I'd have laughed at you and just said you didn't know ball, and that would have just gone to show that that sometimes this is why they play the games, right? Because sometimes
Yeah.
we don't know what we think we know. Um, but yeah, I mean, again, I think the Alan Lazard situation, it can only be a positive when you put it all together, right? You're talking about Aaron Rodgers and him have history. Like you just stated, he got 800 yards in a season when he was the number one guy, which means he was facing off against number one cornerbacks week in and week out. 800 yards. Aaron, I believe it was 6 or 7 touchdowns that year as well. So, he can put up good wide receiver 2 numbers. Um, Hawk says it's still low. I'm gonna max you out on the volume on my end. I don't know. It could be the difference in the mics as well, Hawk. So I hear him fine, but maybe it's because me and him are in the studio. Um, but ultimately, I guess it boils down to this, man. What we saw this past weekend. Listen, guys, it was the 49ers. it really was. Aaron Rodgers over the last 4 years, though, if you wanted to look at any kind of silver lining, has had some very rough season openers. And I'm including the MVP season that he had just back in about 4 years ago. So Aaron Rodgers, this is Aaron Rodgers' numbers over the last 4 years in terms of season openers in the NFL. They haven't been great. It hasn't been what's the word you're looking for? Like elite, so to speak. Uh in fact, I would even argue that his best season opener in the last 4 years was last night as a New York Jet. But
Hmm.
those are the numbers. Those are what he's
That's
looked like.
interesting.
Yeah, in
That
the last
that's
4 years.
really interesting. So this just tells me that Rogers last night was Rogers. Like that's the good news. Rogers was Rogers, I think. And maybe he just always starts slow. I remember that 2022 game. That was the one where he had a bomb on the first pass, and the rookie receiver Watson right through his
Dropped it.
hand.
Yep,
Yeah,
dropped it.
he didn't even touch it. It was like went right.
Yeah. It was beautifully thrown. He just whoop. It was
Yeah,
embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, the 2021 season we're talking about, this is MVP season. My man won 13 games that year, won the NFL MVP. And this 2022 season, people will tell you he fell off of a cliff. For Aaron Rodgers, yes, but he was still a top 10, statistically speaking, quarterback in the NFL. Unfortunately, we're not going to talk about last year. But in terms of Aaron Rodgers, if he plays for a season over the last 3 out of 4 years, at worst, he finishes as a top 10 quarterback. At best, we're talking about an MVP. And ironically, this is his best start in 4 years as a
yeah.
starter in the NFL.
Coming off the injury and not playing football and all that time. So that just tells me what we saw was Rogers being Rogers, and he's going to be just fine, I think, going forward. And so that's really the good news. That's
Yeah,
the best news we could have. Because as we talked about earlier in the show, he's the quarterback, he's the offensive coordinator, he's the leader, he's our, he's our commander. He's the pilot of the Jets. He's the pilot of the Jets.
we crash if he crashes. As simple as that.
Yeah.
With that said, I mean, the Jets just got owned. It's over. It's a wrap. They get to face off against the Titans this coming week. I'm going to talk about the AFC. I see a couple of questions about the AFC East, but focusing primarily on the Jets, we've got the Titans this week. They've got Tony Pollard. They've got a revamped offensive line and a quarterback in Will Levis who's known to use his legs as well when necessary. What do you think the outcome looks like for the New York Jets this Sunday against the Titans?
I think there's a lot of variables at play there. They have a new coach whose name is Callahan. And that may sound familiar to people because Callahan's father is also named Callahan, and he's the offensive line coach. And just turns out that he happens to be one of the best offensive line coaches of all time. So, and widely regarded as such. And so, those Callahans were looking at this game with some very interested eyes and figuring out
Yep.
how exactly to attack this defense with their offensive line. Now, their offensive line is not, as cohesive as the 49ers hasn't been together, all these years. They don't have a Trent Williams. Obviously, nobody does. But at the same time, they're going to try to attack us the same way. Now, they don't have the same type of quarterback. They got a high variable quarterback, I would say. Will Levis, he's a guy who can do some great things. He can run around. He's a tough guy, wants to hit you and take the hits and all that. But he also does some really dumb things at times as well.
Yeah.
And so it's a high variable. So you might get something amazing. You might get something, what the hell did he just do? So that tells you, I don't know. And then they rebuilt that defense, I think, with a lot of free agents, including, if I'm not mistaken, one Jamal Adams.
That is correct. We get to play off against Jamal Adams this Sunday. Personally, I'm excited for it. I am looking forward to watching that game in regards to how you can abuse the back end of their defense. But in terms of their defensive line, they do got some dogs in their defensive line. And I think, again, after seeing what we saw this past weekend, like you said, last night, the blueprint's out there, right? People are going to think, man, okay, that's how you attack this freaking elite Jets defense. You run it down their throats. I want to reiterate the fact that not everybody can have the cookbook, right, the recipe in front of them, and still create the 5-star meal the way it was done by the original chef. That's just not how it works. You can have the recipe, you can have the ingredients, but there's subtleties that you're required to know and understand in order for you to replicate something perfectly. There's no Kyle Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan Senior. You know what I'm saying? The Shanahans have been doing what happened last night to NFL teams for years. 2 generations of Shanahans have done this. This isn't a first, and it's not going to be the last. Right now, the Jets are the LOL same old Jets, but they're going to do this to several other teams that are considered playoff caliber teams, potentially Super Bowl contenders this season. I don't know if the Titans are those guys. I think they're going to have the blueprint. They're going to have the answers to the test. But Kyle Shanahan is different. He's different. I don't know if they can actually replicate that. And because of that, I feel this is where the New York Jets can kind of go ahead and get back on track. You know what I'm saying? Get a get right game, so to speak. I hope our defense is pissed as the fans are and embarrassed as the fans are. And they go in there and they go ahead and reiterate why they've been a top 3 defense over the last couple of years. I think Will Levis, like you said, he's going to be one of those guys who wants to do it all. And he's going to make some dumb plays. You saw the Chicago Bears, make a comeback to win that game without the offense scoring a single touchdown. Compliments of the freaking special teams and compliments of the defense. Do you think the New York Jets go in against the Titans this week and get this W?
Yeah, I think we have to be favored. I mean, there has to be no doubt about that.
Yep.
If the defense doesn't play better, we're in a lot of trouble. And so is Salah and Ulbrich. I mean, these guys have to know that if the defense looks that bad against the Titans, who are not anyone's favorite to go to the Super Bowl or anything like that this year, anyway, there's going to be trouble. So they better get it fixed. I mean, Robert Saleh sat up there and said, "We will get it fixed. If it's a problem, it's not a problem." He said. I was like, "What?" He goes, "We're going to get it fixed. We're going to get this shit fixed." He said. Well,
Yep.
well, you said it, buddy. You said it was going to be fixed. I mean, why didn't you fix it before the game? I don't know. But anyway, now we're going to fix it after the game. It better get fixed. So you say it's going to be fixed. It better be fixed.
All I know is the New York Jets are facing off against a quarterback who makes the kind of mistakes or buffoonery, so to speak, like this. And
Yeah.
if we can't take advantage of that, I don't know. I think there's going to be more questions. If the New York Jets go into this game and, in my opinion, but win kind of convincingly, I'm at this point now where they've got to go in there and they win this game by at least double digits. I just think that if we're really going to talk about this team being a Super Bowl contender, if we're going to really talk about this team being on that same level of the playoff caliber teams coming out of the AF freaking C, you got to go ahead and beat up on teams you're supposed to win, right? Like people talk crap about the Dolphins, which, they didn't beat any good teams, right? But you know what they did do? They beat the crap out of the teams they were supposed to beat. Like that, that's where it starts. You've got to beat the crap out of the teams you're supposed to beat in order for you to have a chance and play the teams that, it should be a game. And I think this weekend it starts here. We are favored. And I think that if again, I want to see turnovers. I want to see this defense wreak havoc. And I want to see freaking our offense kind of go ahead and get back on track. So it's not that I feel kind of cocky or arrogant or that we're just this elite team. I do believe we've got to prove it, right? On paper means one thing, but doing it on the field means a completely different thing. And this week, I need the New York. To me, the New York Jets is a must win. I call me, like I'm being over, like I'm doing too much. It's a must win this week, man. We're talking about the Dolphins and the Bills go off on Thursday night. One of those guys is going to have a 2-game lead in the division. One of them's going to do it. And if it's the Dolphins that get the W, they're going to have a 2-game lead in the division plus 2 AFC wins, right? So we can't be falling behind this early on in the season. We got to go ahead and pretty much get that groove going. So I got the Jets winning this game as well. Sounds like you do too. In terms of the Thursday night game, Bills versus Buffalo, that's going to matter. I'm sorry, Bills versus Dolphins. How do you have that one playing out?
Where's it being played? Is it in Miami?
It's in Miami.
So I'm going with Miami. Miami is
Yep.
great early in the season with the heat and all of that when everything's perfect. Buffalo's defense really should not be able to handle that Miami offense at all. They've lost a lot on that defense, and Miami's offense was great to begin with. So it being in Miami, it's not. Miami's problem is late in the season when the cold weather comes. So I would say Miami, you got to go with Miami there. But of course, you always have a puncher's chance when you have Josh Allen as your quarterback. He could decide, okay, it's Paul Bunyan time. I'm going to take over this game and score 62 touchdowns in a row, and you're not going to stop me. So that'll be interesting too, because the Dolphins' defense, is also a question mark at this point.
I will say this. I saw the injury report came out today, and the Dolphins do have a chain, and they have Mostert on the injury report. Apparently, they suffered some injuries from this past week's game. That's concerning, right? But I've told this. I got a lot of guys who are Dolphins fans I talk to regularly. My brother is a Dolphins fan. I talk to him regularly. Listen, man, I get it. They want to be more physical. They want to go ahead and become that team that's more of a physical, and they're a power for. They're not. They're a finesse team, man. That whole offense runs through the passing game. It almost seems like McDaniel wants to win it on the arm of Tua, getting it down the field to Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. If you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle out there, man, Tyreek Hill specifically, I have a hard time making excuses for this Miami Dolphins team, and I too believe this Thursday night they beat the Buffalo Bills. I think that the Buffalo Bills have lost way too much on defense. The loss of Milano to injury again, is going to further cripple that. Josh Allen can only keep doing so much to help you win. You beat the Cardinals this weekend, but again, if you looked at how many times Marvin Harrison Jr. was open, listen, you got lucky. I'll say it right now. If you're a Bills fan and you watch that game, the concern should be Marvin Harrison Jr. was open a lot. But thank goodness Kyler Murray was too short to see him or couldn't see him or whatever. Tua's not going to make that mistake. Tua's going to look for Tyreek Hill. He's going to look for freaking Jalen Waddle. And if those guys are open, he's going to get the ball in the right spot or to them or whatever. And they're going to outrun your defense, the secondary. I don't see the Buffalo Bills being able to match up. I think this is going to be the Thursday night where the Miami Dolphins, they beat the Bills. They take full possession of the AFC East lead. Bills fall to 1-1, giving us a chance to kind of like hop over them because they'll have the one AFC and AFC East loss. We'll be the AFC team, jump into second place behind Miami because I do believe the Patriots are going to lose to the Seahawks. I think Geno Smith is going to, I think it's at a home game. I think Geno Smith is going to go into freaking New England, and he's going to go ahead and smack the Patriots around. That team they're rebuilding. They beat the Bengals, and I get that. I don't know how. I watched that game, and it was just a bunch of mid all around. But I watched the Seattle Seahawks game as well. They look like, they're going to go ahead and get in the stride, and I think the Patriots catch an L. What do you think about the Patriots game against the Seahawks?
Well, I think you have to. It seemed to me like they got a few lucky bounces in the Patriots in that game, and plus, Burrow didn't have his wide receivers. I think Chase played, but Higgins didn't, right?
That's
So
correct. Yep, that's correct.
maybe that's how they. Yeah, and Seattle should have a good team all around. So I would agree. That's the way that's going to go. I wouldn't be worried about Miami's running game. They still have Jeff Wilson behind those first two, and
Yep.
then they also
Jalen
drafted
Wright.
some Jalen Wright out of the draft. I'm like,
They'll be all right.
how many running backs does this team need? But anyway, so they got no problem. I guess they knew those guys were going to get hurt. So
I mean, yeah,
it,
Mostert, has been hurt a lot throughout his career. Last year was
yeah,
more of an anomaly for him. And then a chain came out and got hurt last year too. So I think they're just making sure they have a stable of backs there because it's a part of their offense, right? They want those fast guys you can get the ball to out of the backfield, let them go ahead and get yards. And again, they're all the same guy. Right from
yeah.
from
It doesn't
Mostert
really
and
matter.
Chain,
Yeah,
they're all the same guys. Speed guys who can go ahead and
yeah.
get open and catch the ball out of the backfield. Um, Finn's got lucky as well. I disagree about this, and I've seen a lot of people, Jets fans and even Bills fans, talking about like, oh, you guys got lucky because it had ETN scored, the game was over. You're right. Had ETN scored, I do believe the Dolphins lose that game. I don't think they come back from it, but what Holland did wasn't lucky. Like it was a targeted. What you call it again? A peacock. What was the punch?
The peanut punch.
The peanut punch. It was a targeted peanut punch that he connected on. That was a playmaker making a play.
Yeah.
And I understand it's the Bills, it's the Dolphins. We hate them. We're rivals. But we don't want to give them credit when credit is obviously due. We're always going to keep those to ourselves. But this is a safe space, man. We're in the hangar. We can be real. That was a playmaker making a play. Yes, it turned the tides of the game. Yes, it's the reason they won. I believe wholeheartedly if ETN scores there, that game was over. But Holland made that play. Like he was going for that and he made the play. So that's not lucky. That was a well-executed playmaker making a play, in my opinion. It sucks.
Where's our peanut punch, by the way,
Right?
Danny?
David,
Can we get a peanut punch? How about a Quincy Williams peanut punch?
peanut punch.
He wants to
That would
punch
be nice.
He wants to punch upward in the air. How about punching the football, Mr. Quincy?
That would be nice, right? Let's change it up a little bit, Quincy. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah.
Bills has owned Miami last few years. And okay, so like whenever I hear this, right, and I know a lot of people, then that just means the Jets are going to be the same old Jets. if our argument every time we look at something, well, they've always done this, that, and the other, then everybody's saying we're the same old Jets, and we can't argue back. We can't. We just got to hold that L then because there's no. The fact is, the Buffalo Bills had a stacked roster. They did. They were stacked on defense. They were stacked on offense. They are not that anymore. The Buffalo Bills have Josh Allen and friends, like literally and friends. And they're hoping it's going to be enough. Miami is loaded, man. They are. They've got names on both sides of the ball. Whether or not the defense comes together, I know right now they're already banged up, which is really, really early. Their offensive line is very, very suspect. But when Tua's getting the ball out in 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds, your offensive line can be bad because the ball's already out of your hands by the time they get into the backfield. So I think that's why they can beat up on lesser teams. And don't get it twisted. The Bills are the lesser team this Thursday. In terms of talent, personnel-wise, they've got the quarterback, and that's it. If you wanted to go ahead and go, pound for pound, it's Bills versus Dolphins. I'm gonna say, well, Bills got the better quarterback. Dolphins got the better everything else. Pound for pound, the Dolphins have them beat, and I think they're going to show that on Thursday night. Now, if the Dolphins do Dolphin things and have an epic collapse and somehow I think for the Bills to win, the Dolphins will have to mess up. I'll put it like that. For the Bills to win this game, the Dolphins have to mess up because pound for pound, the Dolphins, their Bills are coming to Miami. They're coming to Hard Rock. Pound for pound, this is how the Dolphins win games. This is to be. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be easy because it's divisional, but they should beat the freaking Bills and take sole possession of the AFC East first place. But if the Dolphins do Dolphin things and they lose to the Bills, it'll be embarrassing because they shouldn't. And Bills fans won't let them live it down, and I'm pretty sure most Jets fans won't either.
Yeah, that's the way I see it. I mean, they really should. They have a better team. I mean, the only thing is that maybe they lose a shootout because Miami's defense. I mean, I saw Jalen Ramsey get cooked a couple of times
He
in
did.
that game,
Yeah.
and I was like, "You just paid this man whatever you paid him, 25 million
25
extra,
mil a year. Yep.
extra for that. You paid him extra. We might have docked him some pay for that because he was looking pretty old and slow."
And you know what? When I saw the signing, man, and again, I chop it up with a lot of Dolphins fans. I go back and forth with him a lot. My brother, again, is always he and I all the time. When that happened, I was just like, what? Why? He was
Yeah,
under contract for another 2 years. I mean, granted, there's an out for you after this year, but 2 more years. He hasn't really played up to earning a new top cornerback contract. Like he wasn't a dog last year. He was the 11th ranked out cornerback last year in football. He's not that top five guy anymore, man. And it's not like it's a bad thing. This is what happens at age 30 for cornerbacks. Remember Darrell Revis and Richard Sherman, how they fell off of a cliff around this time?
yeah,
Freaking Jalen is a more physical quarterback than both of those guys. He loves contact. It- your body's going to take those. It's a beating, man. You're going to take those beatings. I didn't understand it, but I feel like Miami just has this tendency, man, to want to make everybody happy, and they're just like, you know what, you get a new contract, you get a new contract, and these guys haven't, in my opinion, done enough to warrant it. The same thing I said about the freaking McDaniels contract. He hasn't really. Y'all not much better than when freaking Flores was there. Yeah, the only difference is y'all made it to the playoffs for first round exits, but in terms of the wins, in terms of what he did the last 2 years and what he's doing, it's equal. But you know what? Dolphins fans are happy about it, so I guess that's all that really matters. They're pumped about it. But Jalen Ramsey, look, he got cooked. He got cooked on freaking Sunday. And the good thing for him is there's no wide receivers on the Buffalo Bills that should be doing that to him. But if Keon Coleman comes out there and starts cooking them on Thursday night, bro,
yeah. I mean, if Khalil Shakir, is
oh
like,
my god,
I mean, the Dolphins learned nothing from Xavier Howard. At least Xavier Howard, when he renegotiated, he was coming off a 10 interception season. And
yeah.
I knew at that time, I was like, well, this guy's smart. He has the leverage, right? But he's never going to put up those numbers again. And guess what? He never put up those numbers ever again. And they paid him all that money, and now he's out of the league because interceptions is not a stable stat. So,
I, to each their own. But this week I got Dolphins winning. I
yep,
got Jets winning. I got
yep,
Patriots losing. Jets
yep.
move up from last to second in the division. Miami Dolphins hold the first place spot convincingly. Listen, it's week one. It sucked. As a Jets fan, yes, you can be pissed off. Yes, you can be embarrassed. We were not again, we weren't expecting our team to win this game. But we weren't expecting to lose it like that. Like that to
Yeah.
me, I think was the punch to the gut is how we lost the game. Not that we lost it, but how we lost it. Hopefully this defense gets a fire lit under their ass. They're pissed off and they're going to go out there and they're going to punch Tennessee in the mouth. But Frankie, man, I know I said an hour, brother, but again, you and I got to going, and here we are an hour and a half later, man. So I apologize for taking too much of your time. But this was a blast, brother. We've got to do it again. But yeah, tell the people where they can go ahead and find you, brother.
Yeah, it's been great to be with you, Gunny. Anytime, just let me know. But people can hit me up on the Frankie from Flatbush channel. It's back. I used to have a channel with thousands of subs, and then I nuked it for no good reason. And now we're building it back up, and we have over 100 subs. So I'd appreciate it if you go over there, give me a subscribe. That would be good. We're going to get more content up as soon as I finish my MBA program, Gunny. I got one more thing going on. I got a capstone project I got to get done. As soon as that's over, I'll be able to put much more content up on the channel. But until then, I gotta do what you gotta do with this education stuff.
Yeah, get it out of the way, man, and get to this what's important, man. That's talking Jets football, brother. Listen, if you don't know who Frankie is, you're missing out, man. Like Frankie, when he had his channel before, I was a subscriber of his channel. When you kind of went away, it was weird to me. But then again, I got story in the back end. I understand how it works. But seeing you back, bro, was exciting. Had you on the Thursday Think of It a couple of times as well since then, man. So like I was glad to get you on here. To me, I'm like, man, this is one of the guys I used to watch before I started doing this thing, and to have you on the show, man, this was awesome. Again, all of Frankie's stuff is in the description, man. You can follow him on Twitter, follow him on the YouTube. I'm telling you, it's worth it because when you're talking about somebody who breaks down the game and breaks down with analytics and breaks it down for you to a point where you can understand it, Frankie does that. So if you're trying to understand the game a little bit more in depth, this is one of those channels. This is one of those guys you want to follow because he's going to break down what he sees and gives you reasons why. Not just, his feelings about it, but logically why he sees, why he's saying what he's saying. So go follow Frankie, man. Definitely follow him on Twitter and definitely go ahead and sub to his channel. Frankie, it's been an honor, brother. I appreciate you, man. Good luck on the Capstone project. And, as always, man, go Jets, and I'll be talking to you sooner than later.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Gunny. And goodbye, everybody in chat.
Good night, brother. All right, and that's the show, y'all. Yeah, man, I think in a nutshell, I just want to go ahead and get to the point and say, listen, it's not as bad as we think, right? It was Monday Night Football. That sucks. That's embarrassing because everybody got to see it. I know the majority of Jets fans, Jets Twitter, wherever you're at, you had to go into work today and go to war because, again, people are coming at you with the same old Jets narrative. It's cool. Listen, Aaron Rodgers said this. He said, listen, week one, if we win the game, we're Super Bowl bound. If we lose the game, we're the same old Jets. Guess he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. I will say this. I've been pleasantly surprised by how many individuals in the AFC East specifically that have been like, man, Rodgers looked good, man, for the short amount of time he had the ball. Yeah, if y'all can go ahead and get it figured out, on offense, that could be a problem. I'm also hearing like, their defense has been dominant the last couple of years. What happened last night was a 40. So again, if you're a logical football fan, I'm realizing logical football fans are like, it was the 49ers. Your defense has proven what they can do over the last couple of years, and Aaron Rodgers looked good. So I think that's a positive. But it's week one. We got our asses handed to us, man. We got waxed. You know what I'm saying? The 49ers had their way with us. But the good news is I think we're going to bounce back against Tennessee. We got a couple of games that are very winnable. Before you know it, the Jets are 4-1. In that same time frame, I think the Dolphins might be 4-1 as well. I think we're right there in the fight for the AFC East still, man. Early in the season, it's week one. The Ravens lost. The Bengals lost. The Packers lost. Like, these are teams that were literally being considered for Super Bowl contenders. We lost. We still got to prove it, but this is still one of the better rosters in the NFL. It really is. Aaron Rodgers had his best start to opening start to a season over the last 4 years. He won an MVP just 4 years ago with a worse start than he had today. It is what it is, man. Listen, go Jets. Go Jets, man. Hey, just keep believing, man. What we saw last night, that one Aaron Rodgers freaking drive, if that doesn't make you believe like this team is capable of more than what we've had to endure the last several years, I don't know what to tell you. I think there was a statistic that came out that says that's the longest scoring drive the New York Jets have had since like week 3 or 5 of last season. And we got to see that in the first game of the season. It was also like a game that had more third down conversions than we've had in like 4 or 5 years. Like, it's ridiculous numbers in terms of what we saw just in that one drive alone. So go Jets, man. I'm pumped. Again, like and subscribe to the channel, man, to my channel members, aka Gunny's Fire Team. I appreciate you guys. We're this close to hitting 10. Once we hit 10 new channel members, I am going to be doing a giveaway specifically to my channel members, Gunny's Fire Team Squad. And we're going to kick off freaking doing a couple of live viewings, like live games. We're going to do it as a group. And it's fun chopping up with y'all, man. Thank you guys for watching. I see a question here. Congrats on the Masters. Oh, that was for freaking Frankie. That is pretty awesome, man. I was telling him how I just started mine, but it's an 18-month program, and I tend to what's the word? I tend to procrastinate if I don't stay focused on something. So I'm pursuing my master's right now at U of H. And I had to get on an 18-month program. Frankie is built different, man. The amount of time, I don't know if he wants to tell his business, so I'm not going to. But it took him a lot less time to get his master's than it's going to take me. So big ups to Frankie. What games am I going to, man? Listen, right now it's looking like I'm going to be at the Steelers game. Um, Listen, man, life has hit a little bit differently out here, man. These storms have hit us. We had the no power for a whole week, had to get some repairs done to the house, windows, replace some roof tiles and whatnot. So another storm is headed our way right now. So every time that happens, it takes away from my fun account for me to go ahead and do house repairs. I got 4 kids, you know what I'm saying? So, like, life is life. But I'm trying to get to a couple more. I really want to go to the Miami Dolphins game, Dolphins versus Jets versus Dolphins in Miami. I've never been to Hard Rock Stadium, and it's on my bucket list. And I have a feeling that game is going to be potentially for the AFC East title. So I'm looking at that one. But definitively, right now, the Steelers game. I'll be there next month. I'm gonna be out there with. I think it's Murph. Dano's gonna be out there as well. I know I'm missing somebody, but a couple of us have already been talking. We're gonna chop it up. So if you're going to the Steelers game at Heinz Field, I'll be there. Tickets are already bought. Everything's already set. I'm going to be me, my brother-in-law, and my other brother-in-law. So they're both Steelers fans. I'm the only Jets fan. So if you want to chop it up, man, and kind of have my back when we engage and talk to those guys, hit me up. We'll talk football. But I think that's everything, man. Unfortunately, fans in the AFC East are not logical. Not always, right? Not always, but I think that's what makes us a passionate fan base. I think all of us in the AFC East have very, very passionate fans. Sometimes so much so we think with our feelings, vice our logic or our brains. But that's when you love a team and you're truly a fanatic, right? You tend to be a little bit overzealous, which is what the definition of a fanatic is. But all right, I'm gonna get out of here, man. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me in the hangar. Week one's in the books. Jets look like ass, but it's okay. It's just week one. There's 16 more games of football for us to play. In the words of Aaron Rodgers, relax. It's gonna be all right.